Yeah, so I grew up in Southern California, little town called Encinitas in North County, San Diego.
Yeah.
No idea I was going to do lighting design. I ended up going to school for criminal justice.
Wait, what?
Yeah, had nothing to do with design at all.
Wait. So how did you decide to go to school for that?
Yeah, so I was really, growing up, I was super into music and played in punk rock bands, was like a punk rock kid. Some of my friends' bands in high school, I ended up like taking over as their manager. And so I thought if I went to school for criminal justice, which I was just interested in that subject, that I could go get a law degree and then become like an agent.
Oh, that was the big plan.
That was like my plan at like 18, you know?
That seems kind of circuitous though, like to go to criminal justice to become an agent.
Yeah, I quickly learned like most of those guys didn't have law degrees. And luckily I had a friend that was a few years older than I who was in law school at the time.
Okay.
And he kind of was like, dude, I don't know if I don't see this for you kind of thing. And I was in San Francisco at school, waiting tables at night. And then I was also interning at a law firm and worked there for about a year. Ended up getting fired because they could just tell that like I was daydreaming during the day. Like it was not what I thought it was going to be. It was just like paperwork on paperwork.
Yeah.
And so then I had to kind of like reevaluate what I was going to do. I ended up moving back to San Diego after school, and my dad's business at the time was taking off. So I'm a second generation lighting designer. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I didn't know what I was going to do. I was like, my dad's business needed some help. And he's like, why don't you come just help me out? You're pretty creative. Like growing up, I was always, I was into art and, painting and collaging my rooms was like a big thing. So punk rock posters and like skateboard magazines and surf magazines. My rooms were always like something that I took pride in designing. And so then I kind of like saw what my dad was doing growing up, and he was, at the time, big drawing board at home, designing. His background was in interior design and architecture. And then I come from like a long line of electricians too. So I think this was just like bound to happen. My dad's dad was an electrical contractor. His dad was an electrical contractor. So like growing up, I would go to job sites, and my uncles would like let me drive the Bobcat around the job site, and thought that was super fun. So I kind of like saw a little bit of construction growing up. I saw my dad designing growing up, and like our homes were always very well decorated. Mm-hmm. So I think it just kind of naturally trickled over to me. And so I ended up like just learning everything I know now about architecture and design through just working in the field, like no, formal schooling on it at all.
Was your dad and his practice, was it strictly lighting design at that point, or was he also doing the interiors
It was
design?
strictly lighting design. So when I joined, it was strictly lighting design. This next year will be 25 years in business.
Okay.
So yeah, he started his company in like 2001. And
wow, that's weird. When you said 25 years, I was like, okay, he's going to say like 1990 or like 1985 or something, right. 2001. It's 25 years ago. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So, man, I wasn't like I have friends that are architects that are like, I knew I was going to be an architect when I got my first Lego set.
Yeah, that's a common story with architects, yeah.
I just ended up kind of falling in love with it after working in it.
So when you started working with your dad, was there anything that you remember, in that early phase that hooked you where you thought like, yeah, this is really interesting. I think I could stay with this, long term?
I think it was just like we're such a niche business, lighting. Yeah. And super. I think it was, just like the specificity of what we do and how much people, I think, appreciated it. Mm-hmm. Like seeing clients' reactions at the ends of projects, and that was always really satisfying and rewarding when people were so excited by how it turned out. So I would like come to job sites with him at the end for our like final, focuses and payment tunes and things like that. So yeah, but like with everything, there's a lot of work in the details. And so a lot of that stuff, learning CAD and drafting, just, with help from people that worked with us was like not the most fun thing.
Yeah.
I don't do that much of it anymore, but like, I mean, I think with everything, there's things that are, stuff you just gotta do. But like, the client presentations, seeing how we could walk people through spaces and explain what the lighting was going to look and feel like. Those were things that I always remember being like, okay, this is like something I really want to do.
So once you started, did you stay with, I guess at that point, your dad's company all the way through now, or did you end up oh wow, okay.
Yeah, it's been like almost 14 years now. So
nice. And so since that time, what about the practice has evolved and changed? Has it grown? Has the focus of work changed for you guys?
Yeah, so we started in Southern California. Now we have an office in Austin, Texas. So we've definitely grown. The work has primarily been it's shifted over time. Like we've done a little bit of everything from hospitality to residential to retail to even civic stuff. It's more on the hospitality and high-end residential side of things now. So there's been just shifts in trends in how we've been hired in the industry. But I think it's been growth in terms of like business and understanding how to organize and structure a business. We've gone up and down in terms of staff, and I think we've found ways to be pretty efficient without just having a ton of people. So to me, growth doesn't really mean like, it doesn't, mean you have a ton of people working at your office. Right. I think it's, for us, it's bigger and better projects, higher end clientele, working with people now that we're fortunate that we've, been able to have like these amazing projects with architects that we've had their like coffee table books for, and these kind of like wish list like clients and designers. And so that's been really cool, like trying to align with people that I think are doing the work that like we're passionate about and that we can add value to. So to me, that's been like a big growth
for sure.
Factor in the last few years.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk about what is lighting design, how do you guys approach it, but on the more like the business or personal operations within the practice, what was it like to step into your dad's practice, learn from him, and then I'm guessing there's sort of like a passing of the torch at some point in time, and how does all of that happen for you?
Yeah, I mean,
was he like, no, don't do that? This is my way of doing it, or like, how's it working with your dad?
I mean, as designers, we're pretty like
opinionated.
We may need to micromanage a little bit. So there was days and years where he was definitely the micromanager, and then saw that like I had like earned my stripes and kind of backed off on having to oversee everything. That just happened over experience and years of like showing that you can present concepts well or communicate with clients well and things like that. So he's killing it right now. He's on the golf course more than he is in the studio. So he's kind of on his way out, but it's been really rewarding, working with my dad. It's been challenging. I think you guys probably can attest, working with family is not always the easiest thing. There's times where it's like, we're at Christmas talking about the new project or the RFP we just got, where we should try to like separate it. But, I think it's just natural when you're passionate about what you do and you love what you do that it's going to, be a topic of conversation. So that can be challenging, knowing when to like shut work off and turn family time on.
It's hard when you have a business anyway. And then it compounds when you have family in the business. It's like really, really difficult to do.
Yeah.
Really difficult to do.
We have a rule we try to obey by, which is we don't talk about work after 9 p.m. Like
it doesn't work.
It doesn't always work because there is days like your brain just can't stop thinking about stuff, and your partner is like right in the room, so like might as well just keep talking about it. But it's hard
For sure.
I'm assuming you don't live with your dad, though.
I don't live with my dad, no, so that makes it a little bit easier. But yeah, I've learned to like, okay, we can't like be calling each other at, after hours all the time to discuss work stuff. There's got to be boundaries. Things.
It is a cool thing, though, to be able to work with your dad, because I'm sure for a lot of folks, the idea of them working so closely with one of their parents or their siblings is like, I could never do that. That relationship is not structured in a way where it would work, but for you guys it has very well.
Yeah, for sure. And I wouldn't be here where if it wasn't for him. So I'm really grateful that I've been given the opportunity to do what I do and to learn from him, and to been very few people I think would have hired a criminal justice kid like going to law school or whatever to come do design.
That's true. That's fair.
I got a pretty good opportunity there.
Yeah. And you guys fairly recently underwent like a rebranding or renaming of sorts.
Yeah, it's been a few. So company started as Neal Lighting Design. Then it kind of hyphenated to RNLD. Yeah. Because people kind of were like asking where he is, and we've divided up the teams in our studio. Mm-hmm. It's not like he's involved on every single client meeting, so it kind of made sense to do that for a while. And now it's just Neal Lighting, so our last name.
Clean.
Yeah, and it worked out because it's still 4 letters, so a lot of our like marketing material and things like that kind of looks the same. The logo isn't too dissimilar to what we were doing.
If your last name was like 12 letters, it'd be like, oh my God, we have to rethink everything.
Yeah, it wasn't a big like leap to do the Neal.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Okay, so then talking about lighting design itself, so I think for a lot of folks, a lighting designer for projects like the ones you work on, for the layperson, it's not one of the first professionals they often think about. People think about the contractor, the engineer, the architect, and interior designer. And then lighting designer is not as well known. So what is it that you guys do in a project for the layperson who doesn't know what a lighting designer would bring?
Yeah, so I mean, we design the space for how it should feel and look with the lighting. So we work just like an architect or an interior designer does. We're on board from the schematic, all the way through construction administration. And we bring the vibes to the space. We make it feel comfortable. We make it feel intentional, and really understanding the architecture, highlighting the materials. And it's obviously, I think you guys understand how important it is. Yeah. A lot of people we may not be as known. I think sometimes people just think somebody does the lighting.
I agree with that.
But they don't know how.
Yeah.
Like they maybe just think, oh, the interior designer will take that on, or the architect, or the contractor, but they may not understand that or ask who's going to do that. Luckily now more clients are aware of that. I'm finding more now than ever, and maybe it's just like social media and Instagram and things like that. We're getting a lot of requests from clients directly, as opposed to like usually getting referred by an architect or an interior designer. So I think it's there's more awareness of it now than ever. So that's a good thing for us.
Yeah.
But
I like how you described that you guys are kind of like bringing the vibe to the spaces, because it's really what it is. Like, architects and designers can design beautiful rooms, but if the lighting sucks, like it just, the space doesn't feel what it's supposed to feel.
Yeah.
Right. And it's kind of like this very, kind of like layers that exist within the room. But if you don't get that right, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, and I think it's easier for clients to understand like their furniture preferences or their artwork preferences or materials, because it's tangible. You see
it's
it.
Tactile.
And like most of what we're doing is intended to just kind of be felt.
Yeah.
So the lighting that we're doing is all integrated to the the interiors or the architecture. So it's hard to understand because a lot of times you're like, where is this light even coming from? Which is kind of the goal with what we do, is intended to hide a lot of it. So I don't think and technology you can lose people through, technology and all the details and that. Some people are really interested in it. So I think in general, it's just a little bit harder to understand for clients than maybe some of the other things on their list as priorities.
Do you often take potential clients to see some of the spaces that you've designed the lighting for, so they can kind of get a feel for it? Because it's very much something that I think you have to experience in person, rather than maybe just photographs.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. We do that more for specifications. Like once we're already on board with the design, and during that process, we'll take them to showrooms to see specific light fixtures if they're interested in that. If we're talking like a residential project, it's really hard to let clients go back to their house and bring some stranger over. We've done it before with like some restaurant spaces and with some hospitality spaces where people can kind of come in and feel it. But it is so important because a lot of times it's like, you don't know what good lighting is until you're in a space and somebody can like walk you through that. And that's a big part of our like presentation process too, is like showing them what that should look and feel like. And so,
it's an interesting thing because so much of the early decision making by clients is done, digitally through photographs, obviously, or through publications. But photographs are very deceiving things, and they really don't give a good sense. In our case, for architecture and design, they don't give an accurate sense of anything at all. There are houses and projects that look great in a photograph are horrible in real life, and there are projects that are great in real life, but they weren't captured correctly. Or even if you have a good photographer, it just doesn't get to what it means to be in the space. And I think that's even more so for the lighting. I like how you described it, that it's a feeling, because you invited me to or us, but I went to the Ketra facilities and showroom with you. It was probably like 6 months ago now, which is crazy. And it was phenomenal. Like that was like one of the most the biggest takeaways from that experience, aside from a higher level of appreciation for the technology, which is phenomenal, but also the feeling you get when they shift the lighting, and it's really hard to put that into words. And meanwhile, I'm not a lighting designer, but I am a professional, so I should be able to articulate more clearly what I'm feeling. But even then, I was like, I don't know what I would say to express this, other than it just feels 1,000 times better, and I don't want whatever was there before. I want this feeling. But it's a difficult thing to convey, through images or just through words.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of my favorite parts of the day at home is like early morning, or at the end of the day in the evening, and if I'm just like relaxing on the sofa or something, looking around, seeing shadow and light in the space, seeing artwork that I have punctuated, seeing the low tabletop lights on, having some spotlights down the hallway, candles lit, and it's like, this is like such a nice, you feel it. And it's such a big part of how I live and like my morning and evening routine, that, speaking in residential projects, it's like, your home should be this place where you recharge and relax, and lighting is just so important for that and for what it does for our well-being. And so, it's hard if people haven't experienced that, but it's a learning process. And I think people are now understanding maybe what they don't like, what they've seen that they don't, which is good, and maybe what they do. And we kind of help walk them through that.
I want 1,000 recessed ceiling lights blasting all the time at 6,000 Kelvin.
Exactly. Well, it's a lot of educating, because a lot of people are still like, I hate LEDs. And I'm like, well, sorry, buddy. We got to use them.
Everything's LED.
Well, because they have this idea that it's like this cool, color temperature in a, office space or something like that. Right. Or maybe they've had bad experiences with previous, specifications. It's come a long way, which is good. So Yeah.
So what is, like, how do you present to a client the lighting concept for a project? Because it is such a non-tangible thing to present. Like, I'm thinking we work with landscape architects, and it's always kind of like the same question, like, how do you present something that's
living and changing? And
yeah, like, so do you use mostly, I don't know, reference images of past work to kind of illustrate the idea? Is it more like diagrams, renderings?
All of the above.
All of it?
Yeah. So we'll do look and feel boards. I try to walk people through more, how it's going to feel, larger scale, higher level, as opposed to getting into all of the technical details, unless they're really interested in, what the CRI is that we're using, or what the exact beam spreads are that we're using. But space by space, really important. Here's what your living room's going to feel like and look like. Here's what your kitchen's going to look like. Master. All that's done through presentation boards, relative imagery. We do lots of renders now in-house as well. So exterior and interior renders, depending on, what level the architect or interior designer is with theirs. So it's accurate. So yeah, I think the renders have come a long way now too, which is cool. Like the lighting's getting a lot better. Before, it used to not be great. And I almost felt like sometimes a relative image of an actual finished project could convey that light a little better.
Yeah.
But it's getting a lot better. So we're finding we're doing more of those for exterior shots and some of the big wow moments of the interiors as well.
Is there a specific, this is getting nerdy now, but is there a specific program you guys use for the rendering to get more accurate, tuning of the light?
I believe so. I think we're using Lumion and what's the other big one? I can't think of the other big name.
There's Enscape, but Enscape is a pretty quick program. I mean, for heavy renders, I'm not a renderer. We use a renderer here in LA, and they use
there's the old ones like V-Ray and stuff like that, but I think there's a lot of better things now than V-Ray.
Do you ever have clients ask you if you can do like a 3D walkthrough?
Not often.
Okay.
No.
That would be crazy to produce.
Yeah, especially from a lighting standpoint. There's a lot of detail.
That'd be like a movie.
Yeah. No, not too often. I think we've been fairly, very successful just the way that we've been presenting these days.
Yeah.
The goal is that they don't have any questions afterwards, that they understand what each space should look like and feel like. And so the end is always I think surprising to them, because they may not, like you said, they may have not experienced a space that has different contrasted light levels in it. So understanding that not everything is just at 50% or 75%, but we may have the downlights at 40% and the decoratives at 20% and all of these different light levels in the space with all the layered lighting that we're using that creates this beautiful kind of symphony of lights.
So layered lighting, I like that phrase. So what does that mean?
So layered lighting is just using multiple sources from task, ambient, and accent lighting. So, making sure that there's not just one form of lights, not just downlights, obviously, or just decorative fixtures, but that we're layering in, concealed lighting from cove lights if it works for the style of the project, to decorative fixtures, accent art lights, and things like that, landscape lighting too. So
when you think about the spaces before you design, do you think about them as spaces that are dark that you're trying to lit, or do you think about the spaces at night? Do you think about the spaces throughout the day? Like what is the creative process behind putting the lighting?
I mean, it kind of changes based on the project, but I think identifying key elevations or key moments that can lead someone in a space, lead their eye and kind of walk them through as if it was it sounds cheesy. It's not like a Disneyland ride, but kind of.
Right.
I mean,
where it's sort of theatrical. It can be kind of that way where you're I want you to go this way and then turn down the hall. And at the end of the hall, there's this really beautiful punctuated, art piece at the end that draws your eye all the way down, or, maybe working with the landscape architect to go like, hey, there's this big window. It'd be beautiful at night if we have a tree here that we could illuminate that you're also experiencing when you're inside as well. So that's something we think about a lot. Like, what is it that you're, what are you seeing at night past the glass?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times it's just a little bit of light. You don't need a lot. And it kind of creates that transparency at night. So I think for me, it's always kind of like I get a set of plans, or I get an architect's concepts or interior designer's concepts, and it's really understanding like where they're coming from, really understanding their aesthetic, how they, maybe if we haven't worked with them before, what some of their past projects look like. We're kind of like, chameleons in that sense, where we kind of design to their aesthetics as well, putting our own little sort of flair on it too, and educating where we can. So, but yeah, I think in general, when I start, it's really just like full understanding of the whole project, from interiors, exteriors, finishes, artwork locations, furniture, of course, is a big one too.
Right.
So does that mean you have to be brought into the project after a certain amount of work has happened?
Yeah, we're usually brought on towards the end of schematic design, I would say. Yeah. So there's like a basic concept. There may be a rough furniture plan that's maybe shifting a little bit. There's some finishes that have been selected. The more information that we have available, the faster we can move in our design process. Yeah. So, but it varies. Sometimes we're brought on later in projects and earlier. But I'm curious how you guys, because I know you guys work on a lot of projects. How has it been for lighting on your projects, and how do you guys go about like having that conversation with clients?
Well, I mean, as far as like when the lighting designer is onboarded, it's roughly what you said. Like, we need to have something like in toward the end of schematic design that's pretty solidified to start to work with other consultants and other professionals. Otherwise we end up onboarding people kind of a little bit too early, and things are just constantly changing. It ends up being a waste of time for the other person. But the trickier thing for us, and this also depends on the client, and also frankly how much money the client has to spend, is conveying to them the value of the suite of professionals we prefer to have on a project. Mm-hmm. And so, as you can imagine, when projects have a tighter budget and clients are wanting or needing to kind of just shave off wherever they can, their first question is, the people are like, the mechanical engineer, do we need that? Or can somebody, like you said, can somebody do it? And that somebody is presumed to be the contractor or the contractor's sub who does installing, who can like kind of just talk through some ideas. It's sometimes the expediter and then lighting designer. There's like a few people who are like, well, I don't know if we need them. Can't you do it kind of deal? Mm. We've been asked this a lot, actually, for all of those things. Can't you do it? And the answer is like, well, actually, one of the things I've started telling clients is, everything that's in a final house, if you imagine a final house, someone has to make decisions for all of those things. Everything will have to be decided in one way or another. It just depends on who's making that decision and how qualified they are to make that decision to impact the quality and obviously the budget and everything else. And so it's like, yeah, you don't have, in the case of mechanical systems, you don't have to have a mechanical engineer for your house. Depending on the scale, like we could get by and shortcut it, but is that really the best outcome that you want in the end for, whatever we're talking about? And I think it helps people understand, helps frame the conversation of like, yeah, you have the choice, you have the prerogative to just cut out the architect as well, hire a draftsperson. But all these decisions that would be made by an expert professional like the architect or the lighting designer, those aren't going to be made by an expert anymore. They'll be made by the contractors on site going, okay, well, let's do X, Y, and Z things. And, if a client is really interested in quality, then they're like, okay, I get it. Yeah. And I want the right person to make the decision. But it's sometimes it's a trickier thing. I think too, when it comes to other professions, I try to instead just defer those people to talk directly to the professional, because you would have a better sales pitch than I would. But even then, some people are like,
been the most successful projects for us.
Yeah.
Is when we have that like connection with the client and we've met with them directly.
Yeah.
As opposed to not really having a lot of interaction with them.
Yeah.
And it's obviously easier for you guys if we do the whole dog and pony show sales pitch for them.
Yeah.
As opposed to you guys having to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do that fairly often. And that seems to be, more successful in winning a project as well, because they understand like, okay, now I see what it is that wasn't going to get, without having a professional on board to do that. So, but yeah, I'm always just interested to hear how those conversations go, because you guys have to have a lot of those.
A lot of them, yeah. It's just all over the map. Again, it depends on everyone's circumstances, and we're pretty heavily involved with the LA fire rebuilds. And so as a result of that, sort of a tangent, but a lot of people don't have a lot of money to spend, as we've talked about before, because they're relying solely or vastly on just the insurance money, which makes things like ultra tight for what we're used to seeing. And so that's been interesting as well, because the things I have to say to those folks to coach them through is slightly different than if I'm speaking with someone who's voluntarily decided to spend a lot of money on a really nice house. It's a different set of circumstances, a different person. But yeah, I mean, if I try to get the people just to just talk to the person, talk to the person. But even then, sometimes it's hard for them to take those steps.
Well, to your point too, I think there is a misconception that like if there's a lighting designer on board, this fancy designer is going to expend way too much money, or only gonna design with the most expensive stuff.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be that expensive to be a successful design. Mm-hmm. It just has to have purpose, and it has to be well thought out, and somebody that's taken care of that. You know? So I think sometimes, there's just like a misconception that we only provide the most or specify the most crazy over the top product. But
and I think also too, there's an art with what you guys do, but there's a vast amount of technical knowledge. And I think maybe we can talk about this. I feel like there's a fair amount of not misinformation, but misunderstanding of information when clients are wanting to know about what lighting, what are good principles of lighting and what good products to use. And they focus on things like the CRI or the Kelvin, which are probably the two at the top of the list, which are important, of course. But they're like, there's a lot more to it, which, even as an architect, I don't know all those details, but you guys do.
Yeah.
Like when we were visiting Ketra, I remember you saying that, I think it was there, you were like, CRI is not everything. I'm like, what do you mean it's not everything? Isn't that like the one rating that matters the most? You're like, no, there's other things involved. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I think we were talking about like R9 values, which is the amount of red that is in the light. And so a lot of times a light can be perceived at a higher quality, even if it's a lower CRI, but it has a higher R9 value in it.
See, I know it's
confusing,
but that's so interesting because, if one were to like Google search, okay, how do I find good lighting? It would list CRI and it would never mention what you just said.
Yeah.
Like, no one would talk about that.
I know it is one of those things you kind of have to see. And that's where, some like our experience and seeing product every week and doing mock-ups and things like that is really helpful for us to understand the quality of the light. Like I was actually at a manufacturer last week and we were looking at two different light sources on a piece of art. There was a 97 CRI and then there was a 90 CRI. And in this display, the 90 CRI looked better to me. Like it had less green in the light. It seemed to pop the colors even a little bit more than the 97 did. So there's some things that you just have to play around with the stuff and understand what you're using. But
is is there ever the case where the specs of a light do not accurately express the quality of the light in person? Like, is it critical for you to see in person, a product when someone says, okay, I have a new product and it's meant to be phenomenal. All these, look at all of our numbers. The numbers are great, but is that always equal to great lighting, or is that not really the case?
Yeah, I think so. I think we have to see it. We have to understand what we're going to be putting on the job. Like a recent example, over the last few years, the apertures of downlights have been getting smaller and smaller and smaller, which is generally a good thing. But there's some products out there that have gotten so small, like there's like 0.5 little tiny pinhole lights that from a cut sheet look really sexy. You're like, oh, this must completely disappear in the ceiling. Then you see it in person and it's super glary because there's so much light coming out of such a small aperture
right.
that it's actually more uncomfortable to see that light out of a smaller opening than it would be a slightly larger 1 inch to 2 inch.
Wait, so how small are we talking about?
There's some that are 0.5 inches now. Like, yeah, very, very small.
Yeah, that's a little weird.
For people who really hate downlights.
And then you see, oh, this thing can do, 1,200 lumens out of this tiny light.
Right.
It looks really impressive.
Right.
And so a lot of people, clients were, there's some manufacturers that have done a really good job at marketing to end users. So they're actually bringing these lights to us sometimes. Mm-hmm. And we have to do kind of like tabletop presentations to show them. They're like, oh, you're right. This one actually seems, better, you know, more soft to the eye in the ceiling.
Staring at the sun through a half inch.
Yeah. So smaller isn't always better in this case, technology. And that's the thing with lighting is it changes every week. So we've got tons of new products that we're always constantly reviewing. But yeah.
How much adjustment do you have to make to, let's say, the spec maybe only when the project is being built? Like you go on site, materials are up on the wall and the lights is in, and maybe you need to like tweak or adjust because, I don't know, the color of the material on the wall maybe is stronger than you had anticipated, and therefore things need to be adjusted a little bit.
I mean, sorry, just to clarify, do you mean changing the spec or adjusting?
I'm thinking the spec because I would imagine that maybe you do change the lighting layout, but I feel like that probably doesn't happen as much.
The layout we don't change as often once construction started. Sometimes, things shift. If there's been client requested changes.
Revisions
but in terms of like just tuning the specification, every project. So like at the very end, we do our final walk and final aim and tune, and we'll switch out optics if it just isn't right. Maybe we specified a 30-degree. Most of the lights that we specify have interchangeable beam spreads. Mm-hmm. So a lot of that is switching those out on the site. Fine-tuning coloration even, because we do a lot of stuff that has tunable white light on it. So really dialing in maybe a specific coloration for one type of art piece versus the other. So there's little tweaks that happen, but we're not typically like changing the whole specification. The good thing is like a lot of the new lights are really modular in that way that you can kind of plug and play certain things.
I was going to ask. So talking about the process. So you get involved after schematic design is done, when there's again like a fairly known shell or layout of what we're doing, and then you're involved in DD, and then obviously you have your portion with construction documents, and then during construction you mostly come in at the very end once all the things are installed to tuning. Is that how it works? So is there kind of like a downtime for you guys in the overall process because you're waiting for?
From permit to framing, and so we're usually not needed for. I mean, you guys know this could be a couple of years between permitting to when construction actually starts.
A weird thing.
And by that time, the specs have changed, so you got.
It's a good point, and that happens. So sometimes we'll have it on our contracts that to make sure that construction, there's a specified schedule of construction. If it gets past that we would need to go back and re-review the specifications because it does change so often. So that does happen where we're like, oh, this thing's been sitting for over 2 years, and there's been some, pretty big leaps in terms of technology that we would suggest, re-specifying. So that's a good point. But yeah, we're out there a couple times, during framing when electricals, put in the cans to make sure things need to be where they are. If there's any joist that's shifted or things like that we're confirming all those locations. Helping out during that process for budgeting and providing our clients with, budget numbers for what things should cost before that in construction.
Sure.
Yeah. And then, yeah, we're out there, through the life of the construction admin phase.
So at the end, I know it varies greatly from project to project, but let's say we're talking about like a 4,000 square foot house, nothing too crazy. So how much time do you need on site to do the tuning? Are we talking about a day, 2 days, a week?
Yeah, for that size home, probably 2 nights, something like that, a night or two. So we'll do one night, which is all just aiming,
Oh yeah, you need to be there at night. I was just thinking.
Yeah.
Because obviously site visits for us are during the day.
Yeah. We got to be there in the darker hours of the day. So it's aiming one night, and then the next night maybe programming and going through all the different light levels and things like that. But I mean, it really depends on the scale of the project. We've had some where we've been there for like 4 days if it's a massive home or a hotel project or something like that. Sometimes we'll try to wrap in photography in those evenings too.
Right.
So we'll do we have a really good in-house photographer, Nathan, who's one of our senior designers, is
cool.
a really good photographer, and shooting light is tricky. So it's helpful when
he knows,
already have an eye for lighting. So knowing what times of day are the best times to shoot and things like that. So we'll do that kind of during that phase sometimes.
I was wondering if the change in technology over the course of the last 15 years has made your job easier, more challenging, or has it opened up like more possibilities of how to use lighting in projects?
Yeah, I think all of the above. I think it's made it easier for sure. Now, especially, there's kind of a standard. It's not like we're going between all of these different outdated technologies from fluorescent to, incandescent and things like that. It's pretty, across the board LED now. I still miss some incandescent light at some points, like in some of the decorative fixtures and things like that. I think they just look so beautiful, but and they do just have a slightly noticeable difference in coloration, and but overall I think it's gotten easier. The toolkits I don't think ever been as full as it is now. So with lots of options, and especially with like just the ability to have customization now too, where you can change the color of the lights in your house pretty easily. You can open it up on your phone and change them now, and so for that end user, I think it's been a really cool time.
Do you know what was the most the most crazy request a client had made in terms of lighting? I'm always interested to know what's the wildest thing you've done?
Well, we actually just had one like a couple weeks ago. There was I don't know if it's the most crazy, but they didn't want flicker lighting, which nobody wants, but they didn't want it to be perceived on their camera.
Oh, interesting.
And this was for a residential project, not like a studio or anything like that. So there was different mock-ups that we were doing with different frame rates of cameras to see the perceivable amount of and this is not something you would ever notice with, the naked eye.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, so there was then it was walking her through a couple different options for flicker-free downlighting for her, Instagram story.
I was going to say it must be an Instagram social media for sure. That's a niche marketing.
Very niche. So that, that was pretty specific. Not very common that someone's that highly detailed with what the light's going to look like.
That's funny.
But
that's really
that could be the new niche though. So many people are influencers are trying to be. kind of backing up. So regarding the lighting scope on a project, is there anything that you don't do? Like for folks listening, they're wondering, okay, do you only do the interiors? Do you only do the exteriors? What about landscape lighting? What about? Is there anything that's not within, your purview?
Not really. No, I mean, we're more on the architectural lighting side. So we don't do a ton of decorative fixtures, or specification of decorative fixtures, just because most of our projects have an interior designer on board where we're working closely with them and they're providing those. So we've done it in the past, and sometimes clients will ask for opinions on manufacturers for decorative fixtures and things like that. But outside of that, we do landscape lighting, we do exterior lighting, interior lighting.
Yeah.
And kind of prefer to do it that way, just because lighting is one of those things that kind of ties all those spaces together. So
it would be weird to have like different
Yeah.
people for different sections, because you see it all at the same time.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah, definitely. So most of our projects we're doing full scope, all of those different areas.
Yeah.
So no, not a ton we don't do.
On the decorative lighting side, is it, I guess I have two questions. One is, do you ever have interior designers asking you guys for help with, the lighting part of it, so that it works with everything else? And is it ever a challenge? Because if that designer's, let's say in one example, operating very much on their own and they're not talking to other people, they've now introduced something that, has physicality that looks good, but also presenting light, which could be very disruptive if it's not the right color or the right quality or whatever else. Like it's not integrated physically into the architecture, but maybe not integrated into the thinking as well.
Yeah.
From a lighting standpoint, is that ever a challenge?
Yeah, I mean, decorative lights can ruin a space pretty quickly if they're not done right.
You're like, oh no, what
it's
happened?
They can either be too bright or too much ambient light in the space and really kind of blow out the whole sort of contrasted look that I think most of the time we're kind of going for on our projects. So it's looking over all those specifications on making sure their output's correct, coloration's correct, that it dims properly with the lighting system. So a lot of times that's a big one that gets missed, where like they may have this like $20,000 beautiful chandelier, but nobody provided the right dimming driver for it. So now it's flickering at the low end or something like that. So we check out all of those specs.
Gotcha.
In general, like those types of fixtures are kind of more just that like little added jewelry in the space that we're not really relying on for general illumination a whole lot. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was wondering, when you do the lighting layout and you look at all the specs, do you guys like work with a software to understand how much illumination the space is going to have? Or is it more of a knowledge by experience and feeling? Like, or probably both?
It's both.
Right.
Yeah, we do mock-ups, or we'll do lighting calculations.
Okay.
By code, we have to do a lot of them for our commercial projects. For, say, like a residential project, a lot of times we're doing them for our own design. Like a good example would be like, say you have a double height space, two volume space, and you have this wall that has a big art piece on it. How far do you need to mount that downlight in order to hit the center of that art piece perfectly? So it's kind of like mocking that up and doing a quick calc of that to understand mounting and placement. So we'll do that like for design, study. A lot of it's just experience and understanding, knowing that that's either going to be too much light or too little light, based on the output of the fixture or the specification of the beam spread or something like that. So
it's interesting. I was just thinking that there's probably some parallels to an acoustician. So maybe a couple months ago now, we had a sound designer, acoustician on the show, and he mostly does performing arts spaces that are that where the performance is providing the sound. There's no amplification, in other words. And one of the interesting parts of that chat with him was that he's like, there has been historically two trains of thought in his space. One is you rely on the calculations and the computer program essentially now, and it tells you what it should be, and it spits out a handful of numbers. And the idea is, of course, if you're rating high on those numbers, then it equals good sound, and that's like the end of the story. Versus a different approach, which is to not really rely on that, and you're just in the space, and you more instinctively, based on experience, know what you're going to do, and you hear it in the space in the test or whatever they do. It sounds good, it sounds good. And for him, at least, he's like, these two things are sometimes not aligned whatsoever. Like, we can do it mathematically and it'll spit out the good numbers. It does not mean that it's going to be a great sounding space. Sometimes it does align, but he's like, sometimes they have nothing to do with each other, which I thought was, super interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that's lighting programs too. They're only really they're not considering like the shadow and the darkness of the importance of that. At least they're like, here's how much light you have on the ground. Here's what your reflectance is. Here's what your, it should be from a candela standpoint. But like, I think a lot of it is, for us, is it's a great tool, and it's necessary for certain spaces and for certain project types where we do have to meet certain minimums in different areas, especially on the commercial side. But in like a nice hospitality space or a residential space, it's gut feeling, I think, for the most part, and experience.
Yeah. It's just funny because one of the things that comes up sometimes when I speak with, clients are like, well, I saw online, there's that chart that says, if your ceiling's so high, that dictates like the spread and the distance between recessed downlighting. I'm like, look, like this is the equivalent of, what is it, the golden triangle for kitchens? I'm like, there's general principles, but they're general principles.
Right.
Like, they don't apply to everything. And there's a lot of other factors. I would imagine for you guys too. It's like, if we have an interiors that's all white, it's a very different thing than if the interiors is all dark themed, or we have a mixture of dark and light. Like, you've got to take, I presume, all of that into consideration when you're thinking about the lighting and reflective surfaces and windows and I don't know, whatever else.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Like, we just did a speakeasy where my dad did the interior design on it.
Cool.
It was a client that we've worked with for some time now. We did their home, and they just built this beautiful winery up in the Willamette Valley in Oregon. And in it, there was this cool speakeasy component that he took over and did the whole design on. But the whole thing was like a big mirrored ceiling. So, which is actually really cool from a lighting standpoint, because it can give this I don't know, just really interesting effect where you're like, where is it coming from? You're not really sure where that reflectance is happening. And so I think reflective materials are really cool for lighting and can be super interesting. But yeah, for sure, understanding those finishes, understanding what that's going to do. Water is another big one that a lot of people don't really consider as like a reflective material. But when it's turned off, it can be this like beautiful black sheet of glass, especially when you have other surrounding light sources from like, maybe it's a pond or a pool or something like that, or a water feature. If you have adjacent, landscape lights or uplights or architectural lights, that pond or pool or whatever that water is becomes this really cool reflective material. And sometimes, like, if you have the lights on in it, it's just like exposing all the murkiness of the pond or the water feature. They're like, oh man, they got to get in there and clean that thing or something.
So you're turning the flashlight on.
But 100%, like understanding those moments and where those reflectances occur.
When you're being that you have such a attuned and an expert eye with lighting, when you're out and about at like hotels and restaurants and houses, is it just constant like pain because you're like, this is not...
I'll ruin a dinner real quick. People be like, what do you think of the lighting? I'm like, do you want me to tell you what I think, or do you want me to just say it looks good? It's unfortunate because I think most places don't have great lighting. I think it's a bummer that it's often missed. So, and it's one of the, I think, not just because I'm a lighting nerd, it's just one of the most important things, especially in that scenario, if you're out at dinner or if you're in a hotel or, so yeah, I'm constantly like looking up at the ceilings. And
Do you think that you said something to me as well, one of the last chats we had, which I thought was funny or interesting, and an example of that feeling emotion. You're like, if you're at a dinner and it's transitioning from day to night, you always notice, if you pay attention, the lights will dim at some point. And you said if you pay attention in the restaurant, you'll see everyone kind of just relax. Because they sense that even if it's not great lighting, but it's decent light, they sense that it's a shift and it has an immediate like psychological impact, almost as like an experiment. But I know these 100 people in one space all feel the same thing at the same time, and it just completely changes the vibe, but also what it feels like. You're like, oh, okay, now I can have like the second glass of wine or whatever it is.
It's so big. Like I was at date night with my wife last week, and it happened. The scene transition between like, early evening, still light out, to now, darker hours. And it was like audible. You could hear people go, ooh, the mood lighting now,
Yeah.
And people like actually like, they relax and sit back in their chair a little bit more. And it just like happens naturally. Most people, I don't think, are aware all this like overhead lights making me feel uncomfortable right now.
I feel like
it just is something you feel.
Yeah. I was wondering, do you think that, if you observe all of the average lighting that's out there that's of, let's say, poor quality, do you think it would take a lot of work for that lighting to be improved drastically? So what I'm saying is like, if the lighting that's out there now is really, really bad in general, and the goal is to bring it up to be like good lighting, not like the best lighting in the world, but like much, much better lighting. Do you think that would take a lot of work as a lighting designer, or is it really just like there's a few simple, smart things that should be employed if they hired the right person that would just dramatically impact the space without, them having to go the top tier?
I think it's always harder. It's easier to do it right the first time.
Gotcha.
Than to go back and to try to do a little rehab on the space. Takes a little bit. It's often more costly too, and is always harder to get just right. So I think from the beginning, it's super important. But I don't think it takes a lot other than somebody knowing what they're doing and coming in and going like, I'm going to make the recommendations to make this space look as best as it can with what we're working with.
Gotcha.
Here.
Yeah.
And there's definitely always something that can be improved in that regard.
Yeah.
Whether it's just like adjusting some lights here and there, changing out some of the bulbs, or retrofitting here and there. Removing a lot of times, it's like we don't need this much light. A lot of times, I feel like most spaces are overlit.
Really?
And so it's coming in and like, hey, can we just like take that one out, or switch them differently or something like that.
Yeah.
So, but
yeah, that makes sense. I was wondering that because like, in our case for architecture, there's so many bad buildings out there, and not so much for like remodeling them, because that's like a whole thing. But like, had they from the beginning just worked with somebody to make a few key, well, more than a few, but a handful, key decisions, that structure could have ended up being like 10x better for not necessarily a whole lot more money, basically on the client side. Now, if you're trying to make it like the most exquisite piece of architecture, then then it's going to be take a lot longer, it costs a lot more money in fees and stuff. But like, for art side and architecture, it's like, oh, so many buildings could have been way better just with a little bit of insight from somebody.
Yeah, I think it goes back to just having a professional, a good consultant as your advocate for it, and understanding that like the way that we work is just as the owner's advocate, where we're helping them manage budget. We're making sure that it's not getting over their budget or too expensive, but still accomplishing what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And I think most times, a budget can be hit by just adjusting the specifications. So I think, it's doesn't have to be expensive to be beautiful. It just has to be well thought out.
Is there a type of project you haven't done yet that you want to do?
I really would love to do a bridge, like cool
bridge.
bridge. Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, we've done
bridge.
some museum work. I would like to do a little bit more museum work because that's fun stuff to do. But like a pretty big like monumental bridge would be really fun. We haven't done something like that.
That would be cool.
Yet.
That would be cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they,
that would be
they
cool.
can be such amazing landmarks
Yeah.
at night. You can get pretty creative with them. So.
Do you guys have, when you said bridge, I was thinking of some of the bridges in Paris, which are like, Paris is a beautiful city. Isn't it the City of Lights? Isn't that what it's called? Its nickname, right?
Yeah.
Because at night, it's just like, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, they went a
you know.
little bananas on the lighting over there, but
Well, the Eiffel Tower twinkling every hour is a fun thing, but it's a little bit, well, actually, that's
Yeah, it's
brings
pretty
up
cool. It's pretty
okay, fair
Yeah.
enough.
I initially thought when I first saw that years ago, like I didn't know much about the project. I thought it was just a bunch of people up there taking photos.
That's not a bad
Like
guess.
there's that many people up there taking photos at night.
All throughout the structure.
Yeah.
But actually, that reminds me. So, short story. Years ago, I was working on a project, and I think it was a tower or something, and we designed this beautiful tower. And of course, it takes like a long ass time to design this specific set of towers. And then the lighting designer was onboarded. I think the lighting designer came from more like the client side, like they weren't a preferred professional of ours. And so the lighting designer came on and they did their renderings, and it was like the most aggressive Las Vegas version of lighting a facade. So the building, which during the day had a certain kind of handsome, reserved kind of appeal to it, at night, our vision for the lighting was also something in keeping with that. What they presented was like red, like all the lights you could want in the world on the building, and then there was a series of renderings that said, okay, look, it could be green, it could be red, it could be orange, we could mix the colors, it could do all of these things. And for us as the architects were like, oh my God, this is what have you done to what have you done to our building? Was the kind of the feeling.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was a lighting designer or the client or maybe both or whatever. But I guess my question is, for you guys, it sounds like your personal preference would be to have lighting that's a bit more mature in the way that it's done and not just throwing out flashy colors and flashiness.
Yeah, I would definitely lean towards that aesthetic personally. I mean, yeah, and it's just how it's done and how it's considered. I mean, you can still use lots of lights on building facades as long as they're kind of tailored and dimmed down properly. So you're highlighting some of these parapets just super subtly, instead of putting like a huge flood against the building and washing everything out, or making it be this like huge, standout building. I think it can always be done like subtly. It just,
I would imagine it's harder to do it that way, or it takes a lot more skill in the game of subtlety.
Yeah, it's way easier to just like blanket a bunch of lights on something than it is to really, because again, it goes back to that, like you really have to understand what you're lighting and like really understand the details of the building, and so and how everything gets attached and details and things like that. So, but yeah,
is it more challenging to light interiors and exteriors in general? And also, has it become more challenging with exteriors because of light pollution regulations?
That can be a challenge. Yeah, where we're unfortunately unable to use uplights and trees in certain areas and things like that. So code requirements can be challenging for sure. I wouldn't say that there's like one that's more challenging than the other. It's probably more on just like the project type for us. I think it's easier for interior spaces to become kind of like overlit than exterior areas. I think a lot of times people misunderstand the connection between interior spaces and exterior spaces, where they put too much light outside that they're maybe not accounting for, that will be coming through glass from the inside.
Right.
So like you probably notice that a lot on like second story overhangs, or like you know, these beautiful buildings, but then you have all these like downlights that are in this like this overhang on a small little patio or something like that.
Yeah.
And you're like, dude, you have huge sliding doors there.
Yeah.
The interior lights are going to be on at night.
Yeah.
And you don't need all of that downlighting out there. So that's like, I think an example how exterior spaces can be overlit by just not understanding the amount of interior light.
I agree. And maybe we were talking about that, you know, a while ago, but we have that conversation pretty often with people. And there was a client who wanted to have X number of downlights, and even for us, we're like, this is too much downlight, dude. Their house is not. It's too many. This is like if you're working in an operating room, then yeah, sure, we need this amount of downlight. But other than that, you know, unless you plan on hunting the tiniest spider every night, you do not need this amount of downlight. But there is, definitely this misconception on the exterior. I guess it's because people imagine, you know, if they're living in a typical suburban setting or more remote setting, they imagine it's dark outside. So they think, okay, I need lights, and so I guess the assumption is the same type of lighting and amount of lighting as the inside put on the outside. But the other thing too is, and I think we spoke about it before, it's like when you're outside at night having your wine or hanging out, having your whatever it is, do you want it to be lit as much as the inside? And probably not from a like ambient standpoint. Like you're outside for a reason.
Yeah. You want to be able to see something in the sky, hopefully.
And not just be blinded by it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it comes down to, too, if there is light out there, like how do we get it at like a low level? You know, how is there areas that we can work it into maybe like seating or doing some lanterns or low level landscape lights that have that light, you know, not all just coming from up above, but kind of lower and more relaxed setting.
I like the idea that one would hire a lighting designer and an expert for many reasons, but it's almost like for one of them is to have you tell them you don't need lights here.
Totally.
You know, it's like the opposite of what people would think. Like, okay, then you're going to tell me what lights I need to stick everywhere, but it's like being more reserved because you don't need it. You don't need it.
Yeah, I mean, there's some projects were brought on and somebody had done a preliminary layout or something like that to get through for permitting, and most of the time we're like redlining that and removing lights and really just putting them where they're needed. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Is there like let's say a fixture or a type of light that you're super excited about right now?
Well, I think maybe a technology that I'm excited about is just overall wireless control for fixtures now, where we have the ability to use lights that don't need actual dimming wires driven to them with additional dimmers and panels. It's all wireless and controlled by the light. So that's pretty cool. Allows for a lot of flexibility with how you group your controls for the lights as well.
Yeah.
Frees up a ton of space where you don't need those modules stored in a back closet somewhere anymore, or finding where all of those dimmers go. So yeah, I mean, the contractors just, you're pulling just 120 volt power to the light and that's it. So that's pretty cool. I think we're kind of trending that way for other sources too, for strip lights and uplights, or there's some stuff coming out that's wireless that way. So we'll see. I think, everything's always like getting upgraded, and the new iPhone 17 will be out, or is out, and the new fixtures are all constantly getting updated as well. So little tweaks and improvements here and there. But I think one thing that we're still like, that would still be amazing to see that hasn't really happened across the board yet is like adjustable beam spreads on lights, there are some out there, some really specialty kind of projector lights and things like that. Maybe a little bit more common on like the theatrical lighting side than in like the residential or architectural lighting side. But having that ability to go, I want this to be a spot to like a flood with like a click of a remote or something like that.
Right, instead of swapping it out.
Yeah, instead of it being a lens or an optic that you're physically putting on the light, that you could change that. So there's some track heads out there that do that, but nothing that's like perfect for an interior or residential interior just yet.
It's so interesting. It's so different. I mean, it saves space too. And it also occurred to me some of those not mechanical, but like utilities kind of spaces and zones and houses often get like forgotten about too. And at the end, it's like, okay, where do we have a closet where we can like
always end up running out of room?
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, it's the lighting is one of those things that it got missed, or the drivers weren't accounted for, something like that with the rest of the mechanical. And we try to do our best to make sure we're coordinating all of that with electrical engineers or low voltage, and there's always more equipment that ends up coming in. So
are you guys also involved with so you're on site kind of tuning the lights and directing them and whatnot, but do you also help clients set up the user interface aspect of it, like with the phone or with the pad or whatever it is?
We do. We give them kind of like parameters or guidelines for like how those scenes, we would recommend those scenes being controlled, and what the button presses should be called on all of the switches and things like that.
You set those all up, but you set up the lighting for them so that way they can...
Yeah, so generally the integrator, the electrician who's installing that will do the actual programming for that, but we assist them through coordination on like how that gets integrated. We provide them with load schedules and control schedules for how all the lights should be grouped and dimmed and things, and then we'll be walking through with, it's kind of a team effort with the integrator, the programmer, the client at the end, and that's kind of where that's where like the magic starts to happen, where you start to see all the different light levels, and maybe they've been living in the space for a little bit at like one level, and then they start to see everything kind of change and get this really like beautiful drama to the interior of the space. That's one of the most rewarding parts, I think, of the project for us.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
The final question we always ask is, well, we typically ask architects this, but I think it also applies. What's your favorite building?
Favorite building? The Great Pyramid in Giza.
Oh, wow. We've not had that one before.
Yeah.
That's the first.
Because I'm constantly fascinated by it, as how it was built, and just the mystery behind it.
The accuracy of it.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
It just blows my mind all the time. And now they're uncovering things underneath it that they're realizing could have been used as some sort of power plant, potentially. That we just have no idea of how they even built them, and these stones that were brought from the other side of this the country over there by hand. And it's just fascinating to me how this structure, and now learning too, there's actually 6 sides to it, to where each side kind of bends in slightly, that you can actually see based on the time of day when the light reflects on it. So it's not just like this perfect pyramid or perfect flat plane, that it actually cants in on each side a little bit, which is something that I just found out about. So
kind of regret asking the question, because now I'm gonna have to go research that. It's gonna make me question my whole world. Awesome, man. Well, this time went by super quickly. Thanks for meeting up, coming out, of course, and this was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, thanks for watching this video on YouTube. If you like what we're doing, then please support our show by hitting that subscribe button.
You can also find us on most of the social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're mostly on Instagram. And you can reach out to the hotline, 213-222-6950. You can send a text message or leave a voicemail if you have any reaction to this recording, any questions you might have, or guest suggestion. Feel free to send it our way.
Cool. Thank you for watching, and see you next week.
Thanks. Bye-bye.